Tuesday, the 3rd of September. Hi, and we're here to do some astrology. I thought actually it might be prudent to actually use this session to look at Pluto, because there seems to be some common misconceptions, I'll get my words out, about Pluto. I think we live in a society which is highly sensitive to crisis and potential pain, death, or anything of that nature. And we actually want to sort of live in a world where these things don't exist. We want to sort of cleanse ourselves of all the nasties, and we want to avoid the harsher or more difficult and challenging aspects of life. And so, like taking medicine or using a health service, we just want to let the health service take over, let the medicine take over, and put everything right. And Pluto can invoke fear because we might be out of control. And I think we are also at a point where we want to be in control of everything. And therefore, again, can't readily give ourselves up to something like the cosmos, the will of the divine, a great almighty intelligent being that's got a plan in its head and it might not be yours. It's as if we just can't bear to have anything in our life but angels, pink clouds, great white lights, those little chintzy things that you put on your shelf, crystals, hearts, and little models of angels, all this sort of thing. And a lot of people think they're spiritual if they do that, and they have a collection of these things and they think what they think to be pure thoughts. Being spiritual actually in that respect is just avoiding half of the spiritual world. It has a good side and a challenging or bad side, if you want to call it that. And if you ignore that particular side, then what you're ignoring is your own shadow. And believe me, your own shadow will only get bigger the more you want to repudiate its existence. So let's have a look at Pluto. And I think what I need to do is bring in some of the things that represent Pluto, or some of the things that Pluto has rulership over or is synchronized with. So Pluto, I suppose, right at the base of it, has something to do with genetics and DNA. I think there's no doubt about that. It's definitely involved with the very fabric of life, with it in its early stages before it actually emerges into life. It's Pluto is the energy which exists in the dark, in the underworld, before it emerges. And so therefore, I think, for instance, it's worth saying that many years ago, during the Second World War, the Germans were investigating the realm of genetics and DNA and the code, etc. And that's very much Pluto's realm. Ethnic cleansing, very much Pluto's realm. Now, I'm not saying Pluto approves of what happened, but when people invoke that kind of thinking and go down that path, they are talking Pluto talk. They are in Pluto territory, because this is the energy which is responsible for the very fabric of life at the atomic level, and also at the level of DNA, epigenes. And so I think that's worth saying. Now, because Pluto is responsible for life at that less than cellular level, a nanocellular level, then it goes to say really that it kind of looks as if it has a plan, a long-term plan. When we think about life, how life perpetuates itself, how things perpetuate themselves, there is a sporadic mutation which happens at a DNA cellular genetic level. And if that mutation works, then growth follows it. If that mutation doesn't work and it dies, no growth follows it. So Pluto is involved in putting out feelers, if you like, and if they fall on in a nutritious environment, then Pluto will take life in that direction. So what Pluto is about, now I've made that really simple because I'm an astrologer and we need to learn this energy for astrology, not because I'm a scientist. So don't all write in and tell me how very, very simple that was. I know it was, but it helps us to understand Pluto. So what we all need to understand is that if Pluto is involved in life at that level, then that is all it's involved with. That is what is involved with. Pluto is not a god that sits in the underworld and has designs of bringing about death to mankind. That is not the case. Pluto is not the Grim Reaper, the old man with the hood on and the stick, if you remember, the hermit or something it's called. That's actually Saturn. Pluto is not the decider of things that will happen in the future. Pluto's only concern is to keep life going. It's kind of like keeping a candle flame going or keeping a fire going. Put somebody in charge of a fire, keep that fire going. Okay, that's what Pluto's doing, keep it going. And in that case, yes, Pluto can appear very ruthless. It can appear very uncaring because its main occupation or its main forte, its whole reason for being here is to maintain life. And that life is also about death. There is no death without life, there's no life without death. It's perpetuation, a cycle. The death of something leads to the birth of something else. If you want to think about that as this, the whole lot, everything, the universe, the cosmos, being in a sealed container, right? Get your head around that. Energy cannot just dissipate or disappear. Energy just gets transformed into something else. So if you think about it on that big level, when we feel that Pluto has caused a death or destruction, well, it's energy and it has not disappeared. It is still there. It has been transformed into something else. So Pluto should be seen as an energy of transformation, most definitely. And I've got some notes here. I think also we need to think about Pluto in terms of the serpent in the Garden of Eden, the one that beguiled Eve into taking a bite of the apple or eating the apple, and then she went to Adam and beguiled him into having the apple. Now, the apple, the fruit, if you like, is sex. So before they were to have sex, they lived in this innocence in this Garden of Eden. After she had eaten the apple, then it was that she had sexual thoughts and she cajoled him into it. And God was furious, or whatever God that there is in that Bible. And what that meant was they were cast out, the human race was cast out into this dimension, into this world, or cast out into the desert, whatever. And then they were forever going to be blessed with first sex, And then second, it is said in this Bible that that the woman shall always have the pain of childbirth as her punishment, and he shall toil. But what it meant was that if you've chosen to live as human beings and to get soiled, to dabble your hands in things that aren't angelic, if you want to join that life, then you're joining that life, this life, and it has the dangers in it, but it also has peaks of ecstatic joy in it, like sex. Pluto very much involved with sex, for instance, as the ruler of Scorpio, the zodiac sign, which represents sex in all kinds of forms. So, let's face it, sex is the root of all reincarnation, right? So, with every single sex act, there lies in it the potential for new life to be formed. And it's that potential for new life that is Pluto's territory. The action into getting into that position where you can create new life, where you can lose some of your own DNA through bodily fluids, which join with other bodily fluids. And what miracles happen then? There's a baby, and then there's a human being. That is the world of Pluto. Now, in none of that is Pluto some raging, aggressive, unfair energy which just wants to just sort of give you its worst, perpetuate the most dreadful thing you can imagine, and thoroughly ruin your life. That is not what Pluto wants to do. So Pluto is actually just wanting to cleanse, to perfect, to get rid of things that would have been a burden or aren't right, things that genetically aren't fit for purpose or good. And then it wants to have that life blossom, grow in a constructive way that is fit for purpose, solid, based on good ground, not shifting sand, but solid rock. That's Pluto's absolute intention, because that's the only way it's going to maintain life. So, when Pluto is working on you, then yes, what you experience is a very profound power, an immense power that makes a human being feel out of control or very much in control. And so as human beings, we get affected by Plutonic energy, and it makes us want to be, as I just said, manic. Control becomes a huge issue. Does it seem destructive? I suppose it can be, but anything it destroys wasn't going to make it anyway. Do I think Pluto causes death in astrology? Yes, I do. However, I don't think people should be afraid of a Pluto transit, because Pluto definitely means the time has come. And that's the way it has to be. Somebody, like being on a boating lake and somebody says, come in number 36, your time is up. I mean, and that sounds so cold and unfeeling of me to say, but that's the level that Pluto works at. It works at that amount of unfeeling and coldness. Number 36, come in, your time is up. Now, what Pluto does do, and I hope this comes across, it provides riches. It can provide abundance by the power, by the power pack load, a power station worth of power. It can transform anything. It is magical, truly magical. And I think that ought to be appreciated. Pluto is involved with the healing potential of Reiki, Kundalini. You're invoking Plutonic energy there. It's about transformation, evolution, and wealth on a soul level. I'm just reading all these notes. So understanding the meaning of life, right? What we're here for and what we are here in this transient way for, and why we have to leave, just as it all sort of becomes understandable. It's is a meaning of life, really. That's the meaning of life. Well, Pluto is very much involved with the meaning of life. And if we can change our attitude to it and understand life in that way, then it won't seem so senseless, that life does end in order that there be a rebirth. It puts some sense to it. It makes it meaningful. I think we need to change our perception of evil and the devil. In actual fact, if you go back to earlier times, say 2,000, 3,000 years ago, there really wasn't this sort of heavy emphasis on a devil or evil, somebody with a toasting fork and horns. It, it wasn't seen as sort of that vengeful or frightening. I think the Middle Ages are largely responsible for some of that. The Christian idea of raging hellfires and torment in dark caverns actually came from the Italian experience of volcanoes. It was adopted by the Christian church. Oh, that looks terrifying. Well, that can be our image of hell. There you go. There we go. Large Hadron Collider, most definitely a Pluto endeavor. And the search for life at a submolecular level, we're searching Pluto's realm at that point. So Pluto going back into Capricorn, what do I think? Do I think it's going to be the end of the banking environment, the world banks? No, I think it's going to be simply the case that they are perfected more, that they become more conscious of imperfections and vulnerabilities and insecurities, and work to shore that up, to make sure that there are strong foundations to the world's banking system. I think Pluto actually wants always to work towards perfection. This, the genetic thing about perfection. So do I think it's going to be terrible stuff because Pluto's gone back into Capricorn? No. Like I said yesterday, I think it's simply gone back because there was something it hadn't done. It missed a bit. And so it's got to get the paint tin out and the roller again and do that bit on the ceiling that it missed. I think that's all it's about, to be honest with you. And I think a lot of people ought to consider that diving into Pluto's realm can give you such talents as Kundalini and Reiki and magic and miraculous healing. Miraculous healing comes under Pluto. There we go. Anyway, I hope that was useful. I hope I've not trodden anybody's toes or upset their feelings. I'm sorry if I have. It's one of my pet subjects, Pluto. I wrote a chapter on Pluto in my first book, Starry Messenger. That's that Starry Messengers. Sorry, that's the one that Pam Gregory is always going on about. She was so kind. She said it's an ingenious book. Oh, thank you. I just sat there and wrote it, really. And I don't know where that came from. Anyway, so there's a chapter on Pluto there. You can't actually get a copy of that anymore because it's all sold out. But there are some copies left of The Future Lies in the Stars, which was the republished Starry Messengers. Bindhorn Press republished it and called it Future in the Stars. Some copies of that left. Anyway, if not, I could always put it on a website somewhere or something. I think I have, actually. If you go to the Midland School of Astrology, which is a defunct website which I own, but I filled it full of pages and pages of astrology, and I left it so it would be a resource for astrologers forever in the future. The website hasn't been touched for 8 years, 10 years. It was in its heyday 20 years ago. But there's still information on there, and I think there's more than one article on Pluto. So there you go there, because I will have put all the Starry Messenger stuff into that article. Glad I remembered that. Whatever server is involved with the that website, the website is called the Midlands School of Astrology, Midlands School of Astrology.co.uk. So that server's just about to get some traffic after all these years. It'd be dusting all the spiders off. Right. I think I've done. I see no astrology talk. Well, yes, some astrology. I'm talking about Pluto because it's become interesting. Anyway, I shall say goodbye now. Bye bye, and speak to you tomorrow.